Welcome to ArchiSpeak, the podcast that talks about what it's like to work in the profession of architecture. Are you back home?
I am, yes. Sadly.
Sorry.
Me too. I will say that the lake was far more relaxing.
Yeah, I need to, actually that's something I have to do today. I have to plan what we're going to do. Good times. So you have a good trip?
Yes, yeah, actually. It was, I did work, because it wasn't really a vacation for me, and, our vacation would have been later in probably in, like, early to mid-August anyway.
Yeah.
And this one just kind of fell into our laps. It was fantastic. And as you know, it fell in our laps. But yeah, it was fantastic. It was, I didn't realize how much of a break, or at least just a change of scenery from maybe staring at unfinished, like prime painted walls in basement, like little teeny basement windows and all that other stuff. How much of a break I really needed that.
Oh man. Yeah.
I mean, there was at least there's a change in scenery each day going from work and away from work and all that other stuff. Right. Is probably greatly underappreciated.
Yeah. I've talked about that before with Jesse. It's just like, I don't have the time to switch gears now.
Right. I mean,
and that 15-minute drive was enough. So, well, yeah, I thought it'd be fun to talk about stuff that we're doing instead of going on vacation, and maybe it's just like the things we're doing between work hours, because that's kind of what it is this time. It's not worse or better. It's just different, right? So, like you were just saying, you went off to a lake house, and I mean, you said you were working. Location kind of doesn't matter as much, but you also got to do some other stuff in between the work hours that was pretty cool.
It was very needed. But I mean, it was interesting is because like prior to that, I didn't really realize how much I was working, because I'm at home. So I'm not really distancing myself from work. I mean, I walk downstairs to the basement, the 3 computer screens are up, and I log in, people got questions, I answer them, I look through emails, I look through documents, and I just do that. What would normally be like your 8-hour day ended up becoming, 14 to 16-hour days. And it was just not realizing, just because of the convenience of being right next to your computer, that I wasn't really not working.
Yeah.
If I wasn't awake, then I was working, or at least it seemed like that. You get to a point where you're just like, all right, this is a little too much. You need the break. You need the little bit of a deep breath. And by no means were we planning on, doing any kind of vacationing, because, I mean, we take the whole social distancing and masking and staying distant from people. I mean, yes, we've gotten out to our local state and national parks, but if somebody's on the path taking a left, we're on the path taking a right. Things like that. Just we're out getting fresh air, getting exercise, but still trying to be right about it.
Yeah.
And like I said, it just the vacation dropped into our lap. Somebody said, "Hey, we've got a lake house. Would you like to borrow it?" And we did, and drove.
Well, yes, I would.
Yes, exactly. It was just like, I mean, they didn't really have to explain much of anything. They were just like, hey, we got a lake house.
Well, when you told me this the first time, you said that you were like, oh yeah, that's really nice of you guys. And they're like, no, we're serious. Like, you didn't even take them seriously when they first.
We didn't even take them seriously. And it was just like, okay, yeah, thank you. And then the more, and really, it was up until the day before we like threw our bags in the car and pulled off that we were just still like, this is just,
it's not real.
It's not real. And then they convinced us that it was, and we did. And it was, I didn't realize how much I actually needed it. And again, I'm in the middle of a deadline submission for a pretty big project, and as everybody, as all of the architects out there and future architects know, that we always prioritize the project first in many cases. And so of course, I packed everything up and I decided I'm going to take everything to, I already had a week's worth of meetings already like on the docket.
Yeah, right.
I can't
Calendared.
reschedule them.
Right.
Because, I mean, most of the time because of our client, I need to schedule them, 2, 3, 4 weeks in advance anyway. And so I can't just say, hey, by the way, I just got this, great opportunity to get away. Can I put you on hold for a week, 2 weeks, or whatever? Right. That ain't going to fly. So I, of course, took everything with me. But I did find that I was able to do a far better, far more managed work-life balance when I had the opportunity sitting right in front of me. I sat right next to a window where I stood, stared out at this little boathouse that was filled with kayaks and inner tubes and all of these other things, and a little dock, and sat out there and just, I watched, the family kind of like jumping off the docks and swimming and all that other stuff. And then I knew it's like, oh, I've got an hour before the next phone call, or it's lunchtime and I don't have another call for another hour and a half. I'll walk down, grab the kayak, go out for like an hour, come back. One time I completely misjudged the time because I forgotten that I was on Central Time, and I didn't set my watch back. And so I was out floating and had I was like about 45 minutes out from the dock, and I had 15 minutes before my meeting, realized that I had data, I had actually cell service and my phone with me. And so I pulled it up, and I was just like, just in case you guys are wondering, if I like cut out or get into a little spotty area, it's because, and I like turned my camera on and they could see me in the middle of the lake.
Technology.
Technology. So, as we've discussed in the past, it will be very, very interesting to see how this all changes the way we work. Hell, why not just like, hey, I got a break for a little while, and oh, there's a lake right there. Oh, there's a kayak and a couple of oars. Let me get out there and just take a break.
That's a pretty cool boat-shaped cubicle you've got there, Cormac.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. And it's red.
Yeah. Think about this. In cases like that, or cases like, if we really are getting to a point, and I know a lot of offices and a lot of like smaller sole practitioners and stuff are thinking about how to balance the next step of working from home or working remotely or limited time within the offices and things like that, and how they're actually able to accomplish that. And then, stack on top of that, some people have smaller kids or medium-sized kids or large kids, and, they've got school and things like that. And, there's got to be like ways to like, accommodate all of that stuff, that there is a complete rethinking that we're going to need to do on how we actually set up an office, or set up how we work from home, or how we manage our family from home. And, I'm unfortunately seeing more and more people looking at the reality, and there's a couple of articles out there that I'll try to find and maybe toss in the show notes, but of, people who are kids at home that have to, go to school and stuff like that, or have to be taken care of because there's no daycare or schools for them to go to. That how do you balance the life of being a parent? And it's not just limited to, being a parent, but in our particular case, how do you balance the life of being a parent with also working from home and trying to basically do your full 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 hour day from home, while you're also, trying to be a good parent and make sure that your kids are doing what they need to do, or they're getting out and staying active so that we're not getting our quarantine 15. And just, so there are a lot of, I'm very hesitant to call it interesting, but there are a lot of interesting challenges that we are going to be facing in the very not too distant future. Because even so, like our school system has put out, I think whether they like it or not, it was leaked, what next school year is going to look like. And it's going to be, as of right now, a mix of 2 days in school, physically in school, but with a greatly reduced student capacity. And, breaking up, like, 1 day is actually going to be broken up over the course of 2 days, so that limits the amount of students that are in school, so that you can fully socially distance within the classroom, as well as being masked, as well as being thoroughly cleaned, both over the weekend and then in between each of the sessions. Then they're going to be tested, and then all of this other stuff. And so there's like all of these different precautions that are going in place. Sadly, my son, who is going into his senior year and was looking forward to his senior year of football, most likely won't have that.
Yeah.
And, so, there's just like all of these different things that we're going to have to, so that at least 3 days a week, we've got to have a classroom set up within our house to have those kids there. And then, we as parents need to accommodate that time as well as do our job. It's going to be some tough stuff that we,
totally.
And
huge adjustment.
And I know that just sounds so ridiculous when we talk about it, because there's so many other like issues and struggles and strifes out there in the world, and that, we're talking about these, painful little first world issues, but for at least our world, it is an interesting perspective that we are going to have to change real soon, real fast.
Yeah. So while you are floating in a boat, I've been doing two things instead of being on vacation. The first one is I did start a new podcast. Have you heard of it?
I know. I heard you started cheating on me. With yourself.
I love me. No. We're in love. Yeah, so I started a new show. Maybe I'll throw the promo for it at the end of this. That would be, people can hear that. So in case you haven't heard, I did start a new show, and it's really focused on how technology is changing the profession of architecture. And by you, I don't mean you, Cormac. I know you've already heard this. I mean our listeners. I had some really great conversations on that so far, and I'm really excited with the way that the show is going. And
yeah,
I think, Cormac, you probably need to be a guest on that show so that we can have some podcast inception. That'd be fun.
That'd be fun, yeah. And it's been, I've loved what I've heard so far. I think you're 3 episodes in?
Yeah.
And the good conversations. Definitely, it's
nerdier. It's nerdier for sure.
It is nerdier. It is most certainly nerdier. But the thing about it is that that's the way the profession is going. Yeah. As many times as we've talked about it, we've just never really gotten very specific on this podcast about it. Whereas, on Troxel, please give it a listen on Gable Media. But
links in show notes.
Yes, but it is definitely where, so like where our conversations lead off about, oh, well, we're doing this, and this, you're taking the deeper dive into it, which is absolutely necessary, because you definitely are nerding out, but it also is definitely some extraordinarily valuable information about where the profession is going. We've talked about how, you can talk to, people within the office that went from hand drafting to CAD drafting to now BIM, modeling and just that whole evolution. Well, that evolution's not stopping, and it's going even deeper. And
yeah, it's accelerating.
It's accelerating even quicker now. And now we have an even bigger reason to accelerate it with COVID and everything else, that conversations like what you're having on Troxel are most certainly something that we as the profession need to be having within the every single office, whether it's sole practitioner all the way up to, these big mega firms, just so that the conversation is being had, people truly understand. And I think the good thing is that there are people like you that are kind of like the intermediary between like the days of yore and the days to come. And so I'm actually, I know that you have talked about this for such a very long time, and you've had like your YouTube videos and things like that, but I'm very, very happy that you finally got that out there.
Yeah, the idea really came from having these amazing conversations with the folks who I'm having them with now on the show, like at conferences when they come into the office to show something, or over a call, and just really feeling like so many more people would benefit from hearing this conversation. And it's not like a personal conversation, although I think all the people that I'm having these conversations with are extremely personable. And so it's just more of like, you get to now be a fly on the wall when that conversation happens. You get a lot out of it. Those just being available for people to hear, I think, are very important. I think it's a lot like what we're doing with this show, where you and I are talking about what it's like to work in this profession. And we've had people write in who are either students or all the way through retired, and just saying, it's like we're in studio again, or it's like you're transferring information that our professors don't know, or that we would never get unless we actually went and worked. And so it's similar to that, where people get to overhear these conversations and just be a part of this larger conversation without actually being there in person, to make it and that's the great thing about the internet and podcasting in general, is just that
right.
It's all time shifted, right? So you can just pull these things up when you want to listen to them, and have them around when, either in the background, or you can be actively listening. And so many more people have found time commuting, maybe not so much right now, but doing the dishes, doing the laundry, whenever you're doing, you can be listening to stuff now, because the device is in your pocket with you all the time. So it's just available. And I think like that's probably the piece that was missing for so long in our profession, to transfer this knowledge. Whereas so many of these conversations happened in person at a place at a time, and then they're gone and they're never captured. And so to me, that's really the value of podcasting, and what I'm trying to do with, in this case, technology and architecture, and putting those conversations out to the world, just like we have here with this show.
Right.
So super cool. We'll definitely put some links to that in the show notes. So
that's one thing you've been doing.
That's one thing. Yeah. So the other thing is I've been getting my hands dirty. I started a remodel project. So you've been to my house and you saw this. We have this old, I guess the garage was built in the 60s. And when we bought this house, it was just called the bonus room. We bought this house from the original owners. And oh man, I'll put a picture of it at this part in the show notes, because it was straight out of, I don't know, it looks 70s to me. It's got the striped wood paneling. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Like it's an egregious color. It's terrible. And then the flooring was even worse. Like I've actually saved a flooring tile. I'm going to frame it and I'm going to put it in that room. It's so bad. It's this 12 by 12, lay down tile, and it's probably got asbestos in it. And it's got this terrible pattern. It's this terrible green color. But what they did was they turned the garage into a dance room. And I think that the guy actually gave like ballroom dancing lessons. It's very Napoleon Dynamite is how a friend of mine described it.
Which is ultimately what you guys are going to be doing, right?
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So T-bar ceiling, fluorescent lighting, green flooring, that terrible 70s wood paneling on the walls. Are you getting a really good mental image of what I've been living with here?
And then you've seen it, so. overlay it with the, maybe swing, a little bit of like, big band.
Yeah.
And yes,
the music of your grandparents. Yeah. Like it would be,
exactly.
That would be it. So that was our everything room. It was like the catch-all. It was the office. It was the fitness room. It was where Jesse's
Guest
computer
rooms.
is. The guest room. We put the air mattress in there.
I was gonna say big air quotes for air mattress guest
Right.
room.
Right. It actually it did have a guest bedroom in there at one point. We did. When people have had like extended stays here. So yeah, it was just like this. It's literally a disaster of a room, because it's so big. It's a garage. It's 2-car garage size. It's probably 17 by 22, something like that. It's a weird shape for that, and for 2-car garage. But so it was longer than it was wide. And then it was just our catch-all. Our sauna's in there. Everything's in there. So what we decided to do now that I'm basically working from home out of the bedroom where my desk is, and it's not we've talked about this on the show before. It sucks to like wake up and the first thing you see is your workstation. Right. So I don't have a basement like you where it's a little bit out of sight, and you have you actually get a commute. You get to go down those stairs.
Yes, to the glamorous bare concrete floor, the
cave,
primed walls.
It's the Bat Cave. Like you could call that thing something cool. Like mine is the desk right next to the bed. So
I call it something very cool. I call it the pit of despair.
That sounds very in line with the sketches that you do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You should sketch the pit of despair. That'd be a great piece of art for the show. So this back room is big. So we decided to divide it in half, and I will get one half, and Jesse and the kids will get the other half. And the halves are not equal. Their half is larger because there are more people. And I will share the space with the sauna because we're not getting rid of that. So basically, I've been doing construction. So like I said, I've been getting my hands dirty. And I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about the tools that we use, right? And coming at it from kind of an architectural perspective of automation, right? Like there's a lot of tools that we build in our office as far as our digital practice team goes to help people do things that, they don't necessarily want to do by hand every single time. Or, things that just make your job easier. And so on top of that, I think that there is value to doing stuff with your hands and doing construction and actually learning or knowing how things do go together, and doing demo, like actually taking things apart. We talk a lot about recycling materials and what are you going to do with those things. I've actually been able to save quite a bit of lumber and stuff that I thought was going to be useful maybe in the future and not damaging it completely while taking it out. So there's a bunch of little topics in there maybe, but I thought it would be fun to just start with making stuff with your hands and understanding how things go together. And because I'm basically in the framing stage right now, right? I did demo, now I'm doing framing, and I've got my kids helping me out. And one of the questions that came up was, where did you learn how to do this? And they don't teach you this in architecture school, right? So where did it come from? And I basically credit my father because he always had a project going on. And it's not like we got in depth into framing and headers and, rough openings and
right.
soffits and all this stuff. But it's like you learn how to put things together out of standardized parts, right? And I think that's what makes architecture kind of interesting, right? Is like you come up with these unique creations out of standard parts. Whereas like I've heard it explained, the automotive industry is the opposite. It's you're creating standard things like the Toyota Camry out of completely custom parts, right? The same parts that are in the Toyota Camry, not all of them are used to make a Tesla, right? They're different. Whereas every building basically uses the same components, but in a different assembly to come up with a custom reality. So how do you take a van full of studs and turn it into a demising wall with soffits to create an office? I think that it's been kind of a fun experience to show the kids how you go buy this pile of building materials and then you go assemble them in this very specific way.
Right. Yeah.
In this very specific order, right? Sequencing is a thing for sure that most architects don't have to think about. And actually gets us into a lot of trouble sometimes, right? Is you design something in such a way that it can't be properly sequenced, so it can't be built. So I think about that a lot when I draw, especially when I'm doing it for myself. A lot of times I think a lot of architects just are like, oh, they have to figure that out in the field, right? That's their job, not my job.
One of the worst responses that architects can come up with are means and methods.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Oh, that's means and methods, and I'm not allowed to touch that.
Yeah, it's like we understand that, but I mean, I've got a perfect example of what's going on with the project right now is that, one of our biggest efforts are, okay, we've got, this massive, almost 600,000 square feet of renovation, addition, and demolition and everything else. And some portions of the building are going to stay active while other portions are under construction, and everything's fed from one area to all these other remote areas and stuff. And so sequencing is massive in this, the construction phasing overlaid with the actual implementation of everything that we've put in our documents is huge. And so understanding and knowing all of that, it is a completely concerted effort. We've got design assist partners, we've got the CM, we've got all of our engineers and us all talking at the same time, as well as the user groups. Okay, you've got X amount of lab spaces in here that are active right now, but you've got construction going on right next to it. How do we limit the construction efforts during X, Y, and Z times so that we can do our work, but then you also do your work, and we understand that, you don't build with feather hammers, that there's going to be a lot of noise and a lot of vibration and everything else going on. And so yeah, I mean, it's interesting because they don't teach us this in architecture school. And you're absolutely right, because us, through experience, through conversation, through getting out there and doing our own projects, which is great for an architect to understand how to swing a hammer, but what it takes to actually construct the things that we draw are absolutely imperative for being able to kind of coordinate these efforts.
And I find it incredibly important to just have a chair in the space so that I can sit down and stare at stuff and think about how I'm going to put it together. Because it's not like you don't figure all that stuff out when you're drawing it. You draw what you want it to look like when it's done. Right. And you might draw in a few extra lines for okay, this is pretty much where the soffit framing is going to go, so that, I can plan that out for when the lights are going to go in there and stuff like that. But so for instance, I'm building this demising wall that has a 3-foot jog in it. And the reason there's a jog in it is because of where the door is on one side of the room and where the window is on the other side of the room. And this window is kind of a ribbon window. And I don't want a wall landing in the middle of the ribbon window, right?
What?
That happens. So I've got this jog in the wall, and I've got it planned out where there's going to be these nice soffits and stuff. So I actually basically prefab the soffits on the floor because it's flat, number one. I can get it square, number two. I can lift them into place and just attach them, number three. And so, but thinking about all that, it's not stuff that I thought about when I was drawing it up, and because I didn't need to, right? So it's kind of like design build. You do the minimal amount of drawing so that you can get the permit,
right?
And then you go and you actually figure a lot of this stuff out when you go build it, saving you time in the drawing stage, but literally taking quite a bit more time during the building stage, especially with me because I'm not a builder, right? So I like to just sit down and stare at stuff. And it's amazing how much effort goes into thinking through all this stuff. And obviously, contractors who are very seasoned with this just know how this stuff goes together. They've done it 100 times, 1,000 times, whatever. I haven't. So, but I find it incredibly satisfying. And I think I've only put things together incorrectly so far a couple times and had to take them back apart. Or had to rethink something or whatever based on the way that I did it. I have to now work around what I just did. That happens too. But it's incredibly satisfying to think through all of the sequencing and think through the steps of assembly, not just larger, big picture sequencing stuff.
Right, right.
So it's really satisfying, and I will say, like, it does make you a better architect, right? When you do know how things go together, or at least you have an idea of how they could go together, you're going to have a much better conversation with somebody who actually does have to build it, and you're going to have kind of a mutual respect, I hope, with that person, so that you can say, no, I actually thought about that, and here's what I'm thinking. So it's been really fun. I mean, and so, getting beyond just the thinking and the building is like, what are my favorite tools? Because there's like the usual suspects, right? When you're doing demo, there's the hammer and the pry bar, and it's really satisfying to like rip things out, right? It's kind of fun. I think it's a really fun part of the process. It's definitely a dirtier part of the process, but getting old tile that's been glued down for 50 years off the floor is really hard, right? God, I had to rent a jackhammer, and oh my God, the kid really wanted to use the jackhammer. They thought it looked so fun, and all I could think of, you're going to lose a toe, right? Like, there's no way, that thing is so heavy. It could just get out of control so fast. So I rented a jackhammer. That's my one tool rental. Everything else I think I've had. I've only purchased one tool so far for this project, and it was just a drill bit, just so that I could drill into concrete so that I could anchor the sills to the floor, which kind of, puts it in perspective. Like, I have a lot of tools. I have basically a Home Depot of tools in my garage, and so this helps justify my ownership of them, I guess.
And a AutoZone as well.
And an AutoZone, yeah, definitely. So yeah. It's been, there's the standard tools, but then, there's the levels and the squares and but I think like it's kind of worth talking about, like, what tool advances have come along over the years that now everybody kind of takes for granted. And like bringing this back to what I do at HMC with building tools for architects, or finding the right tools for architects. Obviously we don't build them all, but things that make your job easier, better. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of ways to look at it, but I thought it would be fun to talk about those tools. And I thought maybe I could throw that out there and have you guess what some of those might be, just to kick this off, and so that I can take a sip of coffee.
Okay. Let's see. Tool advances, or just tools in general?
Tool advances, like things that, like putting it under the banner of like automation.
Well, because it's funny, because much like you, I thank my father for all of my knowledge of both, working on cars as well as working on, houses and stuff. I mean, we kind of like, we re-roofed our house, and we rebuilt soffits. Actually, what that re-roofing led me into a couple of summers where I had taken some time off of school or came home or something, and worked for a roofing company, basically roof repairs in the hot Florida sun. Is just brutal. If you can, I learned the mistake of thinking, okay, well, I'm going to be out in the hot Florida sun. I'm going to be on a roof. I'm going to go ahead and just, obviously going to wear my steel-toed boots, because that's what I'm required to do. But I'll go ahead and, just wear shorts because it's going to be really hot. Yeah, that's not the smartest thing to do, because you get sunburns in places that you should not be getting sunburns.
Totally. Oh, the back of the knees. That's the worst.
Yes. And try to imagine, like, so we used to do the aluminum, the roll-on aluminum coatings, or, whatever it really was. And so very highly reflective, and, getting that reflective sun beating back up onto you, and you just like dying of sweat. And it just, I've been in full military gear during Desert Storm with 130 some odd degrees outside, and you're wearing 4 layers of clothes and a gas mask and flak vest and all of those other things. And honestly, I would have much rather taken that than work on a Florida roofing crew in the middle of the summer, because that sucked.
Jeez. Yeah, I had I did the roof at my last house, and because I had a friend who his dad owned a roofing company, and so he grew up roofing, and he helped me, and I could not have done it without
So
him.
much.
But he told me
Yeah.
this story, just a quick digression. When he would be up on the roof working all day, him and the other guys would, because they wouldn't carry like a tool belt, they wouldn't carry, because it was just always getting in the way, and they'd get down
Yeah.
on their knees and it would spill the nails. So where did they keep the nails, the roofing nails? In their mouth.
Yeah.
So they would throw a handful of galvanized roofing nails into their mouth, and they had this system where they would poke one out of their lips at a time, grab it, and put it in, and poke, and so they just had this nail dispensing system called their mouth. People.
Okay, so listen. So I hate to say that I have actually done that before. Now let's talk about the evolution of, you're talking about automation and evolution of tools and stuff like that. So now you went from basically chipmunking some, squirreling away some.
Is that what that's called?
I don't know. Just squirreling away some galvanized roofing nails in your mouth to actually having, pneumatic gun that you basically throw in a clip of
staples,
of roofing nails or staples or whatever. And, you're able to do that so much quicker, so much easier. And it's a lot better than, the absorption of, the zinc coating on your galvanized nails in your mouth, into your body.
And now he's a doctor. Right. So.
Think about that. It's just, think about like the exposure.
Nope.
It was out of necessity, really. It's just like, I can't carry all these tools around because, trust me, I'm not a big fan of heights. Huge challenge for me to be able to get up on that roof in the first place. And then, you got a nice steep roof. Flat roofs I was fine with, but, like a steep pitched roof was not a fan of. And of course, I'm on the repair crew, so I've got to go on to any and every roof, which was interesting because I really did learn.
You learn a lot about roofs.
I learned how to walk on a clay tile roof.
Oh, yeah.
Because the first time you hear that, that you broke a roof
tile. That's like $1,000 mistake right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Not to say that I ever did that. Oh,
no, never.
I did that. And in the look on the other crew's face when new guy does that and they're just like, oh, you idiot.
Right.
Because now we all have to like peel back that section and redo that one tile that, of course, is like in the absolute most inopportune place for you to like have stepped on the tile.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, so I mean that's the interesting thing about the, like the opportunities that in fact, actually what's good about it is that in architecture school, we talk about, well, you don't really learn these things, but the good thing is that there are more and more architecture schools that are embracing kind of that kind of design build
learn
philosophy,
by doing. Yeah.
Learn by doing. Because I mean, the reality of the fact is, and I'm a huge proponent of this, is that how else are you really truly going to understand how to build something if you don't, how to like design something if you don't actually know how to build it? And even if you're building like a small thing, and I love the fact that, a lot of schools have, like we had a concrete class and a wood framing class and things like that, where we were learning how to design these things, but then they would also make you do full scale mock-ups, or like in our concrete class, we went out and laid concrete sidewalks at like the local, elementary school or high school. Mm-hmm. It's like they needed new sidewalk. We jackhammered up the old sidewalk and laid out a new sidewalk. Or in my particular concrete class, there was a local park being built, and it got all of us, our concrete class went out there, and we learned how to tie rebar for, these big concrete retaining walls, place all the rebar, place all of the formwork and everything else, have it all inspected, and, then ultimately they'd come out with the concrete truck and pour the concrete. But learn by doing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's as a kid growing up, I built decks and put windows into walls and move doors and all kinds of stuff like that. It's a great experience, and I do really credit that where it came from. And then I think it's definitely informed by those courses in college where you are doing learning by doing in materials class or whatever.
Yeah.
And just doing projects at your own house and staring at details, right? Like you just figure out how things go together by looking at how projects are detailed, because it's not in the drawings, like it's not in the floor plans where you're going to figure out how things go together. It might be in the sections, right? It's not the elevations, but it's really in the details. It's how do these things go together? And my wife does a lot of Revit work and drafting work for other architects, and she's constantly asking me, how does this work? How do these go to? How should I draw this? And it's just because of my construction experience that I've taken it upon myself to figure out over the years that I can actually figure out how things do go together. And she hates drawing details, and I kind of love it.
I actually really love it. I mean, that is one of my favorite parts of, like the documentation process, or, like figuring out the details. It's like, okay, how am I going to stop water from coming in through this? Because I'm to do a pretty unique kind of one-off condition that, yeah, there's similarities to other things that we do out there, because we don't really always necessarily reinvent the wheel. But sometimes when we go, a little rogue on it, we, do something a little different and a little, throw a little sass into it. And how do you prevent water from... I'm going to stop before I finish that sentence. Anyway.
Well, I asked you to pick some automation tools maybe that I've been using, and you definitely were on the right track. So the air compressor nail gun pneumatic is huge, right? Never had that when I was a kid. And when you're framing soffits overhead, holding up 10-foot long 2x4s so that you can span this, and you're going to hang them from that. And oh my gosh, it's like that. The nail gun is not light, but it's way better than swinging a hammer, and it gets the nail in all the way the first time.
Exactly. Because you're gonna. It's far better to do it once, albeit heavy and a little bit of awkward and all that other stuff. But you do it one time versus sitting there and kind of like hammering the nail, and maybe because it's in an awkward position, you bend the nail, so you've got to straighten it out, or pull it out
because you're just not that good, right? Like a real framer will use a hammer, and they will just get it right every time, right? But not me.
I mean, we're doing it on the side.
Yeah. So definitely that's one, and I feel like it's worth the expense for something like that. And I've used it quite a few times to have this, and I've got various sizes of nail guns. But the framing nailer for sure is it's awesome, and just having the air compressor and being able to hook up whatever tool you want to it is fantastic. But let's go like way simpler, and the tool that makes the kids like it's magic is just the simple chalk line.
I was going to say, other than the jackhammer.
Right.
Chalk line, yeah.
Chalk line is like, when you see that for the first time, it's like, whoa, what is that? That is so cool. And so, it's definitely an automation tool, right? Like it's way better than, than measuring off drawing this line with pencil cool.
Making like 15 different measurements just to make sure that it's straight. You got one that, as long as you've got like maybe two measurements, from the origin point and the end point,
right?
And you snap in between, rather than having to like double check all the way down the string, before you didn't have the chalk line, and you just zip. Even though that is not a modern,
not at all,
but it is most certainly an automation that old timies did not have.
Yeah, I think like chalk lines, levels, squares, all of those things they've been around forever, and they are still such a key piece of building. Like I've got a speed square, I've got a 2-foot level, a 4-foot level, a 6-foot level. Square. I've got, the chalk line, I've got a string level. All these different things because so I mentioned in the beginning, this is an old garage, right? So guess what's not flat? right?
I'm just guessing your floor
Yeah. I mean, not only is it
and your walls.
not only is it, at some very small slope percentage, but it is not flat either, right? Like that would still be considered flat even if it's sloping, but it's not flat, right? So yeah, there's that, and then the walls, the ceiling, nothing. Anytime you're dealing with a 50-year-old remodel, nothing is going to be flat ever. So this leads me to the latest and greatest automation tool, and I don't own this,
Laser
but
level?
this is why I was at friend of the show James Sink's house yesterday, because he does have one. What'd you say?
Laser level?
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh yeah.
Magic. Laser level is magic. It's so awesome. So I went and borrowed that from him and just got that thing set up yesterday. Holy moly, that thing's awesome. Like my soffits are perfect now. It was so cool.
What's funny is that there are going to be like beautifully dead level in a space that is nowhere near dead level.
Yeah, totally. No, I'm just hoping that I will make like the drywall job easier, right? Like that's all it comes down to now is like as you start applying finish materials to all this stuff that you're building, that it just goes in easier than it would have if you didn't, right? Like when you're putting trim on the doors, when you're installing the door, when you're putting all, the drywall up to the ceiling. So it's a huge deal, right? And it's crazy because I was driving myself pretty crazy because I'm measuring down from the ceiling and then I'm like, this is 3/4 of an inch off. And I measure up from the floor, this is like an inch off. Nothing's flat, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but
yeah.
So think about this and think about like people who specialize in renovations, or like in my case that I've always seemed to be the one who does a lot more renovation work in the projects that we do, that even though you can come in with a standard kit of details of like, okay, I want this to be this, and this, 9 times out of 10, and almost every architect out there is probably shaking their head about this, is that when you're doing renovation work, it is purely custom work.
Yeah.
Regardless of how standard you think a detail is.
Nope.
It's still got to be customized to that particular condition. And so
verifying
you
field.
can have it was exactly, VIF is like your biggest friend, because you can say, okay, I'm going to start this soffit and it's going to be 8 foot off finished floor, and you look at the space and it's like 8 feet maybe achievable on one side, where like the floor, like I'm looking off at the far wall in my basement right now, and I can visually tell. Yeah. One, because I can see the grout lines or the mortar joints in the CMU, that my floor above is not perfectly flat.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
or the walls tilted.
or the walls tilted or whatever. And so, if I were to start to finish this thing off, I mean, almost every piece from one end to the other is going to be slightly longer than the other one, just because of that. And so, I can say that, my soffit's going to be 16 inches deep or something like that to achieve this 8 foot soffit line. But it's going to be maybe 16 inches on one side and maybe 18 to 20 inches on the other side.
And it's funny because you are alluding to exactly what I was thinking, which is that it's totally surgical, right? When you're coming into an old space and you are doing some kind of upgrade or modification to it. Like, okay, so here's the most surgical part for me is that I told you that this space has a drop ceiling, right? It has a T-bar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got 15/16 T-bar, which is very important. Do you know why? Because there are different size T-bars, right?
Yeah, there are.
And you would never pick 15/16 for your new project. But Armstrong sells a plank ceiling that attaches with clips to the bottom of this T-bar as long as it's 15/16. And that is perfect because now I don't have to frame a ceiling. Right?
That's good.
I'm going to put in this
you're just
plank ceiling.
Up to the,
no, I'm framing through it. And that's why I bring up surgical. because I have
Ooh.
to attach these walls to something.
So, okay.
So
I
it's tricky. It's super tricky. And it's like, okay, I'm going through all this trouble to save this T-bar ceiling instead of framing my new ceiling. I hope it's worth it because it's a pain in the ass to get all the studs and then put the top plate up through the T-bar and put it on top of the studs and nail it in place underneath a catwalk that's in the attic. It's totally crazy, the stuff that I'm doing. But now I'm done, so I don't necessarily have to worry about it anymore. But man, like just getting this ceiling or these walls, this demising wall framed through an existing 2x2 grid
mm-hmm.
and under some catwalks to attach it to that are up in the attic, which are beautifully made. Like when they frame this old garage and they put these 2 catwalks in there I'm assuming just to be able to get up and fix any leaks in the roof or anything that might happen. It was really well done. And I'm lucky that they're there. But wow, what a like real surgery that I'm having to do.
Yeah, well, I believe we all deserve some photos on the show notes because I mean it's
hard to visualize,
but yeah, we need to do some visualization here.
Yeah, so that's been my my last couple of weeks. Just like I said, I'm just at the framing.
Okay, so
but
think
next
about
is
this.
electrical.
So think about this. So you did a set of documents that was basically just enough to pull your permit.
Right.
And a lot of times in like residential, you sort of have to. Now think about having to document that to the nth degree for more commercial going out to bid kind of thing, because you have to do, you have to like design it completely out. Like my my documents. Oh my God. The documents that I have right now are just insane. But having to try to fully understand each and every one of those like weird little peculiarities in the building so that you can document it enough. So one, you can, as I say, add the Y to the CA, so that you're CYAing it, but also the fact that, it helps save you some heartache in construction when you can basically try to cover as much of the differing conditions as possible.
Right.
So I mean, and that's what the weird, kind of like adventure of documentations are when we do these things, is that, we're, having to kind of like make this weird little roadmap of insanity during the documentation process, and how many more details are being added because of all the unique conditions within these buildings. I mean, I mean, maybe at the end of this, I'll at least put a tally on, how many documents that this set ends up. I mean, I think we're close to 1,000 sheets so far.
Yeah. It is a roadmap of insanity. That's a title candidate for the episode right there. But it is very much so. And there's so many things that you think you've covered and you just haven't. Right? You just don't know what you don't know. And so you get up in there and you're like, well, the floor was sloped more than I thought because, even though the room's right there, I didn't do enough field investigation. And so my soffit's going to come in just below the head of the window instead of at the head of the window, right? So how am I going to adjust around that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I want it to align with this other door head, and the door head is in a different location in the room so you can see how like all this stuff plays in. You just figure it out while you're doing it. And on some level, it's really satisfying, and it's probably the only way to do it, because you can't think of every condition or come up with cover every condition in the beginning planning stages.
Right.
And nor should you have to, right? Like, to me, that's one of the downfalls of the way that architecture has evolved over the years, is now that everything has to be, and everybody expects it to be in the documents, when there's just no way that's not even right,
It's not even possible.
It's not possible. It's not right. It's crazy making now the expectations that a drawing set should have to cover.
We didn't invent the term unforeseen conditions for nothing.
Right.
And
nobody ever wants to pay for those. Yeah.
And we're sure in the hell. I mean, like I affectionately refer to our documents as IKEA instructions, where when you pull out the IKEA instructions and you look at all of the kits and you're just like, it's it's either written or it's written in some Scandinavian language that you certainly aren't going to be able to take the Bjorken and then put it in the Bjorken. And just like, what the hell is going on here? And that's essentially what the documents that we create are.
Right.
Is just we're trying to have them find the Bjorken for the Schmjorken.
Well, it's been a fun process, although it has, like I said, it was 107 yesterday. It was a little warm to be working.
So let me ask you.
But I wasn't on the roof.
So let's bring this back to the kind of like this kind of global conversation. Are the reasons why you're taking this big kind of like catch-all space and making it into office space for both you to work from home and your wife to work from home and your kids to school from home?
Right.
Is that the ultimate reason why you're doing that, or
totally
were you planning on?
No, that's it.
And so
I wouldn't have done this. I would not have done this if we weren't working from home. We would have just continued to kind of
just have this big space.
Yeah, just live with it how it was, because it was flexible. So here's another kind of unintended consequence of this, which is probably in the positive column, is that when we're done, now we're going to have an office and a bedroom, right? Theoretically. So we just, I think, raised the value of our house without adding any square footage. And would I have done that outside of this situation that we're in? I don't think so, because I like the flexibility of that large room. But isn't it weird that we live in a environment where people value these checklists of how many bedrooms does your house have? What is the number, right? Oh, check.
Right.
4 bedrooms. Check, right? Now all of a sudden it opens this house up to a market that it wasn't in before. And I didn't add anything to the house. I actually divided a space. And I think that, if you start thinking like a realtor and you start thinking like a developer and you start thinking about the value of a thing, and how an architect can actually add value to a place that didn't have it before, by not adding on or not adding an ADU or whatever, here it is.
But taking the space and see that's the thing that we constantly talk about. The value of an architect is being able to walk into an existing space and start to see the potentials of just what the 4 walls actually have to offer, above
or by
and beyond
removing walls.
Having to exactly.
Yep.
Without having to go beyond. We've got to put on an accessory unit here. We've got to do. You've got to do this and that and all this other stuff. And, first just assessing what the actual space itself can offer is something a lot of people don't usually, most people aren't thinking about that.
They're buying like a finished product. Yeah,
exactly. And then they're just like, we always find, and I don't know if you do this or not, but, sometimes we stumble on watching these shows like Love It or List It or stuff like that. And people are just like, my family of 4 just, can't live comfortably in 2,500 square feet. They're like,
yeah.
Wait, how the hell can't you live comfortably? I was like, how big are you people?
Right.
Because there is my just shy of 1,000 square feet with 5 people in it. We do perfectly fine. I mean, sure. Some of them are getting too tall and need to, find more room probably. But, overall, I'm baffled at like the concept. And most of it is based off of like, what kind of return on my investment am I going to get, when I decide to leave this? And it's interesting because most people are thinking when they go into buying a place, what am I going to get out of it when I sell it? Instead of like the long term of like, okay, this is the space, finding a place, a city, town, hamlet, whatever that you want to live in,
Mm-hmm.
and finding the right place, and then just finding enough flexibility within that space to, okay, maybe I might have outgrown this floor plan and I'd like to change it, but I have the vision to be able to like modify it. And it's such it is such a very American concept, I guess, to just say, how quickly can I get rid of this and go on to the next thing?
It's not sustainability minded, right? Like that, to me,
No,
that is
no,
what
not
we're
at all.
trying to do here, is like not go through all the effort it would take to find and move into a new place. What if we
Right.
just change the thing that we're in? Like, houses are modifiable. They just
Right.
are. But
Yeah.
I think people think of them more like your iPhone, which is like, yeah, I can put new furniture in it. I could install a new app, but I can't modify the thing to fit the way that I live. And that's just not true. And I think, a lot of people don't think of it like that. I would encourage listeners of this show to think of your space like that. If it's your space, make it your space, because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really like one thing that I think is valuable as an architect is to really you don't even actually have to do it, but it's a great process to go through to draw it up and play out like you're going to do it. And what would you change? Because when you start to really analyze how people live, whether that's you or your family or someone could be your parents, it could be your neighbors who want to modify something, and you're going to help them do that. That is invaluable experience to go through, because the more that you know about how people live, the better of an architect you're going to be. Period. And I feel like you do get that kind of experience over time. It does manifest in the designs that you do. Like when I remodeled my kitchen a couple years ago, it's totally custom around how we use a kitchen, us. And
Yeah.
is that going to translate to other people just fine? Absolutely, right? We didn't dumb it down for anybody else, right? We did it how we wanted it. And that's super valuable because you really pay attention to how you live. And that does, like I said, manifest back into the design work that you do. And I think that's
Yup.
super valuable.
Absolutely.
Just drop the mic right there.
Well, there is one question that I do have.
What's that?
What's with you Scandinavian descended people and
And saunas.
and saunas?
Oh, yeah.
Because you say you can't,
Not getting rid of that. Yeah.
you're not getting rid of that. And the lake house that we stayed at, that was built in the 30s, and the guy who had I don't know if it was designed it, but the guy who ended up building it was a Scandinavian immigrant. I believe they said
Swedish, I think you said?
Swedish. Yeah. I believe they said they were Swedish, but so he, like, the boathouse, and this wasn't a very big house, but it was a well planned out house. It was like this one big kind of like, it was almost like this one great hall of a space where the kitchen and the dining room and like living space were all in this long kind of like shotgun space.
Mm-hmm.
So it was open concept before open concept. I mean, this was 1930. And it was a very open concept before. And then all of like the bedrooms and bathrooms and stuff were kind of like off of that, like little small corridors and stuff that were kind of built off. So it was very,
nice.
it was a very modern, like, floor plan for a 1930 home. And it was just this little small, modest boathouse. And it's not really boathouse per se, because you can't put a boat in it, but this small little house down by the dock, right on the lake edge, and which was, of course, like, if it was my home, would be my like work from home studio, because it had like it was beautifully finished with this nice hardwood floors and all this other stuff. But you go down there and it was like maybe, I don't know, like 10 feet by 20 feet, 10 feet wide, 20 feet long,
like a single car garage.
Yeah, maybe a little bit smaller than a single car garage, but roughly around there. And two quarters was just like an open space where, they were storing oars and life preservers and, paddle boards and all this other stuff. And the other half of it was a sauna, and it was a nice sauna. And it had like the stove with like the stones, and it was like it was like it was a 1930
steam sauna. Yeah.
Steam sauna.
Dry,
it was
dry
like,
steams. Yeah, I don't know the right way to what you call that, because I don't have that, but those are awesome. I love those.
Is it? I mean, is it dry steam? If like you basically you heat up the rocks and you pour water over the rocks and stuff.
So it's not like a steam room where you're not trying to get like everything wet, right? It you pour the water over the lava rock that you superheat, with a wood burning stove or however it's heated, and then it creates steam to superheat the air inside the space, but it's not a wet room, which is important because it's all wood, right?
It was all wood.
Because then the wood basically like soaks up that heat, and then it's basically just pushing it back into the room. So it's usually like a cedar lining or something like that.
Yeah, and it was so very, like, the whole thing was just, pretty amazing. And just, it was so simply built, but, looking at it, and I was, as architects, we walk into buildings and we start kind of like, analyzing things and looking at it. It's just like, oh, what would I do differently? And sure, there might be an upgrade here or there, some very awkwardly laid out bathrooms, but again, 1930 indoor plumbing, was just coming into vogue, like, maybe a few years prior to that, to be quite honest with you. And, so, I mean, it was very forward thinking for, being a 30 home. And so, but, when I look at it, and I was just like, there's really not much more you can improve on this little house than, what's already here, other than, I mean, they had already done an electrical upgrade. So, it was fine. They had perfectly good internet. So it was fine. I mean, there was really not much more that you needed to do to this home.
Yeah.
It was all wood paneling. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, wood paneling, it's, so like 1970s. But the more and more you sat there and you looked at it, this was 1930s wood paneling. So like it was like thin veneer wood paneling, but it was real veneer.
Yeah.
So you think to yourself, would I really change out this beautiful thin wood veneer just because it's, passe? Like, this is beautifully constructed.
Yeah. I think a lot of Scandinavian immigrants went to areas like Minnesota because it was very similar to the area they came from. And the key to that boathouse with the sauna is the lake right next to it, right? So the way that you do it is you sauna and then you go jump in the lake. And often you'll go back and forth quite a few times. And doing that kind of back and forth is what really does boost the immune system. When you go from extreme hot to extreme cold, it raises the white blood cell count and it basically keeps you healthy. It's a workout, and all you're doing is like sitting and jumping into a lake because your heart rate goes way up when you get really hot. And I mean, this is why I sauna as well. It is really a health thing to do. Even in the summer here, I'm still sauning like 3 times a week, and it's pretty brutal, but I do it early in the morning. And then I'll take as cold of a shower as I can right afterward so that I do that, try to do the immunity booster. And I do it all year round. I do it in the winter too. And it's wicked cold in the winter. And during the summer, I can't get the shower cold enough. But my goal is to have a big pool of water right outside that room after this is all over so that I can do like a full body immersion into the cold, as cold as the water can be, right after the sauna for that very reason. And it's it's a long held Scandinavian tradition. And I think it's cool that you guys got to see that there and in the house that you went and stayed at.
Well, now it makes absolutely even more sense where it was located.
Yeah. Yep.
Because
right there on the water.
I was trying to, they were like, oh, there's a sauna here. And so, I was like, well, yeah, it's down in the boathouse. They're like, no, it's not. It's over here. And you can see like the little chimney poking out of the boathouse. And so, I finally convinced everybody when I showed them the little rock stove or whatever it's called in there. And they're like, oh, okay. And now it actually even makes more sense that that's kind of like the tradition. I mean, because, you can basically walk right out, go down like a little set of steps, and you're literally right in the water.
Yeah.
And it was, and the water was actually pretty comfortable. I mean, it's cold. I mean,
yeah, you want that like initial shock,
but yeah, you'll
get
border,
used to
so,
it. Right. It's not Alpine Lake.
Yeah.
Although in the winter,
so,
I'm sure it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is International Falls, which has recorded the lowest temperature in the continental United States in history.
Oh my gosh.
Like 58 below zero or something like that. So it has
ice fishing.
I mean,
anyone?
it is a cold area, but I mean,
jeez.
It was like, I'm used to swimming in cold lakes because I swim the Great Lakes all the time.
Mm.
But yeah, I guess my dream, now that I know that I'm going to be adding a sauna to whatever my dream actually is literally to live. I think I've made my choice, is I'd like to live off of like right on Lake Huron. Lake Huron is, to me, it's still close enough to civilization. It's off of like the crazy busy like Lake Michigan, which is, you got Wisconsin, you got Chicago, you got like all of Western Michigan and stuff. And it's just too busy.
Yeah. Well, can you convince Rochelle? She good with that?
I think she's the one who worked to convince me.
Okay. Awesome. Done deal.
So
cool, man.
So if this work from home, still can persist the way it does, and
work from anywhere,
stay on, I can work from anywhere.
Cool. Well, until next time.
Oh, we're done. All right. Yes, absolutely.
All right. That might be all for this episode, but maybe listen to the end just in case. This show is part of the Gable Media Podcast Network. See all the shows at gablemedia.com. That's GABLMEDIA.com. You can help support what we're doing here by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to help get the word out, and don't forget to share it with your friends. We'd love to hear from you, so leave a comment on the website at archispeakpodcast.com, where you can find our entire catalog of shows. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon. Hi there, I'm Evan Troxel. Welcome to my podcast about how technology is changing the architectural profession.
We're in this tiny little village of our own technology, and the rest of the world is just kind of accelerating away. So can we take some of the benefit of that technology that's been developed in these other sectors and like bring it back into AC, so we're not in this cul-de-sac that we've created of our own tools?
The biggest shock to most of our graduates once they go out in the world is, you're working with others through the process. Because that in school is something that they don't necessarily have to do unless you have a multidisciplinary studio, let's say.
So, look, we're going to work on automating high quantity items.
Yep.
There's a lot of bathrooms that get designed in the world. So we're going to focus on stuff like, can we automate fixture counts and keep people accountable to what's in IBC just from the get-go? Trying to automate the stuff that is annoying, like life safety compliance, so that architects can focus more on design solutions.
It's the Troxel Podcast, broadcasting from Gable Media.
This is what you get. This is what you get. This is forget. I know, I know, I know.
What was interesting is my oldest got a job online, trained online, and has basically been conducting business online. And so, like, he's literally, like, his change of scenery is, I'm going to go from my bedroom to the, dining room to maybe
it's
the
just
basement.
like us.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, like, his very first job that he ever got was...
Wow.
I mean, because he hasn't had, like, a physical job, like, in the physical world. I mean, he's gone after a few, but,
Wait for his back in my day stories. That's going to be great.
Oh, I know, exactly. It's like, yeah, I didn't know if I was talking to bots or not, but, I mean, and he's made, and he's gotten a couple of paychecks so far, and it's just so weird to think about how he was applied for, interviewed, trained, and does his job all online.
Yeah. I mean, I have a team member who he actually started one day before we went to work from home. So he came into the office that I was in Ontario for one day to get a crash course. And we were just kind of lucky that we had that one day, right? Because otherwise, if he would have started any bit later, he just would have done exactly what your son did. And so what's weird is he hasn't met any of our team in person at all. It's just like your son, right? He's just, there's no actual physical human contact between you and your job. It's just in that space in your house every day. And that's where you do all the interaction, and it's all digital. Super weird.
It totally is. And, the thing that I I can see where he's selling things. He's selling knives, kitchen knives, which, he's actually done, surprisingly enough. I mean, without like a live demonstration of the way that these knives work.
And now we're going to play Fruit Ninja. Do you want to buy this set of knives?
It's a little on the surreal side, to be quite honest with you. And,
totally.
And, so like, obviously his parents were going to buy some knives. And so we got kind of like, because he was like, he was very like depressed because he had done presentations, which is, Aiden, and doing these presentations, is well outside of his comfort zone. I know he's not introvert. He's a very, He is a very introvert. And so, and he did a great job, going through doing presentations to people. And so, he was getting a little disappointed in the fact that he wasn't selling anything. And I'm like, think about this, Aiden. He's just like, I'm a terrible salesman. I'm like, no, this is just unfortunately terrible times because you're trying to convince people to buy a set of really expensive knives with disposable income that they don't either necessarily have or not sure that they're going to, when their next paycheck is coming because, it could be that, the people that you're talking to, and most of them are like leads and family, it's like comes from family and then those family give you, leads and those, people give you leads and stuff. And so, I mean, it's not like he's got like a list of people that are like really interested in buying knives and he calls from there. No, it's like he's really got to like beat the pavement and like convince people to at least just listen to his spiel. He did that multiple times and, it was really, really kind of disappointing to him that he wasn't selling. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you've got to really look at the reality of the situation that you're living in right now. And so he was just like, well, can you guys throw me a bone and like just buy something? Like, of course.
He's like, I need a reference here. I need you guys to.
Yeah, because I need to. And what was funny is
super helpful.
He was after that, so like he was over 10 on his first run of things, and then we were like the last people in his first run of 10 to listen to his spiel. We did, and we of course bought stuff because we're going to buy stuff from our son. He got better at it, and everybody that had listened to it were they weren't going to buy. They just weren't going to buy right now. But what the good thing was is that they helped him. They gave him like pointers on how to fix his presentation or things like that, and how to make it his own and everything else. Because almost, it was either teachers or architects that were listening to a spiel, and so all of these people
talk for a living.
They talk for a living, and so they were giving him all of these great pointers, and it was fantastic to for him just to kind of like listen to these people who do this all the time. Yeah. And then when we finally bought something that it kind of like gave him a little, even though he knew we were going to buy something anyway, it gave him a little bit more confidence. And then, he actually started to sell. Now, truth be told, when we got back, our knives were waiting for us. And truth be told, these are some damn fine knives. They're probably some of the best knives that I've ever owned.
You can have a link to Aiden's online shop here in the show notes.
Yeah. They came in yesterday they came in and so I unboxed them and I hadn't cut with them. We got in on like, late Friday night. So Saturday I'm like, okay, it's time for me to cook and make dinner and all this other stuff. Pull the knives out and I was just
dang, look out, fingers.
Well, yeah. So, got them all ready to go. And then I was making some chicken and I literally didn't even have to like put pressure. Just like cut through, chicken breasts with like zero pressure. And I was just like, holy crap, these are actually really good.
That's awesome.
Not that I wasn't expecting them to be good,
Well, of course, yeah, they're brand new, man.
Well, they're brand new, and then they're like expensive,
and they'll probably last forever. You probably never buy another set.
Well, they, funny enough, they do come with a lifetime guarantee, and when they go dull, you can ship them back to the company to have them do a company refurbishment and sharpening.
Nice.
And so, yeah, they're really nice.
All right,
So
so link in the show notes. Huh? I mean, you're gonna have to listen to a spiel from Aiden for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing is you gotta, you know, if you're interested and you're looking to buy knives, you know, please hit me up now.
Yeah,
I will say that he is definitely learning that jobs versus careers, there's a big difference.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were talking about, you know, perspective of where people are coming from when they're listening to this is a really great lesson. You know, thinking about just the whole idea of empathy, right, and putting yourself in their position. What kind of uncertainties are people going through,
Exactly.
right? And when you talk about sales, you're talking about like what are the obstacles and what are the things that people automatically have, you know, what's working against you as a salesman automatically. There's a lot of really interesting like psychological and actual things to be thinking about there and ways to overcome those. I remember when I worked for Apple and I was being trained, and it was really interesting the way that they had this approach. And their approach they weren't training you to be pushy. They were training you to build relationships. And because, I mean, that was one of the things that I've always taken away from working at Apple that I felt like was really amazing, was that their attitude was that when the sale happened, when it finally happened, they never expected it right away. And they knew people came into the store 3, 4, 5 times before they actually decided to make a purchase or not. But they said that when the transaction happened at most stores, not Apple stores like Best Buys or whatever, that's when the relationship ended. And they said for them, that was when the relationship began. And I felt like that was a very interesting attitude to take, because at that point, once you've bought in, now you are part of something, and they were going to make sure that you enjoyed using this thing and that you knew how to use it. Because most places you go buy the thing and you never go back. You never talk to them about it. But at an Apple store that's open, that teaches classes, that does tech support, that does all the things that enable you to continue to use the tools and hopefully allow you to or enable you to use them better. I always felt like what a great like position to be in, right? Because that basically guaranteed that you were going to come back time and time again, and that it wasn't going to be a one-time deal. It wasn't going to be a one-time purchase and then you never saw them again, because then you're constantly looking for new people to churn through your system, where it's way better if you build that relationship over time and they just continue to come back and back and back. I think that's one of the things that as architects, you know, in our business model is incredibly difficult, right? Like we do rely on repeat business from campus type customers, right? You want to do a great job so that their next building, they come back to you. And then that in its own right is very difficult because they like to spread work around and do things like that. And you can't guarantee the performance of everybody in your team, and it's really complex and all these things. But anytime your business is built on finding new people, because hardly any clients out there, especially in the residential market, right, are ever going to build another house. I mean, that's really low volume numbers. You're talking about people who build more than one, spend their life savings more than once, right? Unless they're just in that model of a, you know, flipping kind of a model, like build a thing, fix, you know, spruce it up, sell it for more, hopefully, and keep doing it and kind of go through that. Most people don't do that with real estate.
True.
Most people. So as architects, that's really hard, right? So one of the things that we've thought about is just like, how can you change that business model so that you create a relationship that lasts longer than 3 years and is more like 20 years or 50 years? How can you help them run their building better over the life of that building and get paid to do that and have a relationship, right? So that they do come back and they do tell people about you, and you do still continue to get that kind of word of mouth marketing happening on their behalf. I think that there's opportunities out there for that kind of stuff. But that whole like putting yourself in their shoes, I think, is a really cool lesson for anybody who does any kind of communication around sales. It's super important, and obviously we hear the empathy word a lot these days.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking about that as I'm explaining this to, Aiden. I'm, trying to explain to, I'm just thinking about like, because we belong to like the, entree architect community, and there's a lot of sole practitioners out there who are kind of dealing with the same situation where either, very busy and it's kind of, feast or famine kind of situation for them. And so how do you get new business in almost a virtual setting right now? And how do you approach people trying to get business for yourself with that level of empathy to like let them know, hey, I know you're kind of on the fence about, this project that you were talking about with me, during the normal days, big air quotes there.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think this is probably a good time to, think about doing the design portion of it at the very least, getting things the way that you want. I will say that the thing about like this shutdown that has kind of benefited us, and I use that term very loosely, specifically in my project right now, is that it's given us some time, because construction operations have stopped. So, but, the design operations have continued, offers up an opportunity to, keep going with the project as it was like previously programmed. But then is this right? Now that we know we're getting all of this data from the new world, we're going to probably start, terming the post-COVID world.
Mm-hmm.
And, is the program that we had decided upon a year or 2 years ago right for 2 months ago or 2 months from now?
Right.
And so, we are really honestly looking. I mean, we've had the conversation on a couple of different occasions where, we're talking about, entry sequence. I mean, first it was just a set of doors that you went through, a vestibule, and you walked past a security gate and up some stairs. Well, is that what we're really going to be doing in buildings like what we're designing currently? Is that what we're really going to be doing in the future? Or are we going to, stop them, test them, at least just do some, kind of like tracing and things like that, just so that we know, if somebody gets sick, how do we like tell all the other people who've ever been in this building? Normally, when you have like an open building like this, you don't really know who's actually in the building at any given time. I mean, you may have a set of eyes on them, but do you really stop them to talk to them and say, who are you? Where are you going? All of that's going to change. Maybe not 100% change, but it is going to change. I mean, you'll have a lot more eyes on you. You will have a lot more skepticism on you as you're, as we're designing these buildings and stuff and entering in buildings and occupying buildings and stuff. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how the empathy portion of this kind of like moves forward as we're both designing and landing, trying to get jobs. And it's going to be an interesting unknown that we're all going to have to kind of like wade through together and just hope that people are willing to kind of keep working at, it's just like, okay, well, I really wanted to do an addition to my house, but, now that, and who knows? I mean, there's going to be, speaking of, additions to houses and stuff, I mean, people are going to start looking at, you know what? I think I need an office in my home.